It's the KC Arts Beat Report. I'm Patrick Neas. Thanks so much for joining me. And before we start talking about a famous character in literature with a dear friend of mine, I want to ask you to please subscribe and like KC Arts Beat. Please follow us on Facebook. We have great information about the arts every single day on Facebook. We also carry Canon John's Concerts of the Week, so you can keep up to date on what's going on in Kansas City. And one of the things going on in Kansas City very soon is the Adventures of Don Quixote, presented by the Bach Aria Soloists, led by violinist and founder Elizabeth Lane. Hello, Elizabeth. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Wonderful pleasure to see you, Patrick. Thank you so much for having me.
This is going to be how many times now that you have done the Adventures of Don Quixote?
This will be the third time, but the last time was, believe it or not, let me think about this. The last time was 8 years ago.
It is so much fun, and I understand why you bring it back because it's an audience favorite. Tell us where this performance will be, when and where, and how people can get tickets, and we'll repeat that at the end of the show.
Excellent. It will be on February 15th at 7:30 at the new Zhou Brothers Art Center in the Jazz District. And you can get tickets on our website, bachariasoloists.com.
Great. Why is this show so popular, do you think?
Well, I think it's really unique and it's bringing back a tale that everyone has heard of, even if they might not be that familiar. Once they hear the scenes that will be enacted by our two actors, the main characters, the Cervantes himself and Don Quixote will be portrayed by Jerry Manyan. And Justin Barron, who has worked with us several times before, he will be the sidekick Sancho Panza. Hearing the depiction of the six scenes, probably the most renowned scenes, maybe from the novel, and then we have 13 pieces of music, Spanish Baroque music, and the lovely and charming pieces from Telemann's burlesque de Don Quixote is it's in French. So the music is also really delightful, mysterious, beguiling, and just really unique. So I think the combination of the comedic scenes from the novel and this mesmerizing music is why people enjoy this. I mean, we've heard that again and again when we've done the show. So I hope that many people will still want to come and see it portrayed by these two actors who have not done Don Quixote with us yet.
Sounds wonderful. I have to say, I'm proud to have been a part in putting this together, the original performance, helping choose the scenes and adapt them. Yeah, I've been a big fan of Don Quixote forever. I think her name is Edith Grossman, her translation of Don Quixote. And
Yes.
it's a riot. I mean, it's hilarious. There are parts of it that are like Laurel and Hardy or the Marx Brothers. It's just really great. And how about the musicians? Who's taking part in this?
Yes, so it will be Bach Aria Soloists and our great friend Bo Bledsoe
Uh-huh.
and Gershon. So they
What
were
was
the
the last name? I think that I kind of dropped out your name.
Sasha Gershon, the cellist.
Uh-huh. Oh, yes, sure.
They've been our troupe for this the past couple of times too. So it'll be a great reunion for the five of us.
And you guys also even provide some sound effects at certain points in the I don't
Yes,
want to
we
give
need.
anything away, but
I don't know if you remember last time, Patrick, we had the accidental sound effect from St. Paul's Episcopal Church where the heating system was making these really loud noises during Yo Soy La Locura, which it comes at the end of the show. And Sarah was singing in her most pianissimo uh, voice. And suddenly we hear this loud clanging from the. It is about going mad. That song is about going mad. So that
Ah,
was
that was perfect. Cervantes was looking down from heaven and added that himself. Well, and speaking of venues, you have a very special venue this time. Tell us about that.
Yes. I don't know if have you been to the Joe Brothers Art Center, Patrick?
I have not.
Right. Well, I think quite a few people probably have by now, but they only opened this past year. And I went to the opening day and met the Joe Brothers, but it's a beautiful art center in a completely renovated school in the Jazz District. It's just at the end of the block. And the Joe Brothers, they have an art center also in Chicago, which is really successful and thriving, where they have their own art, and then they've invited all kinds of artists to hang their art in the center in Chicago. And they've done the same thing in Kansas City. They made a visit to Kansas City. They were looking for another place to plant their art center, and the whole idea is that not only do they have their art there and expanding you know, their exhibit, but also to bring artists and the community into a center where people can freely, look at living art from living artists and, and purchase it. And also some artists are in residence there. I think they have, I don't know how many, but maybe 50. I don't know. They have quite a few artists in residence they're actually working. So you can come and sometimes you can see them working, but also buy their artwork that's hanging there. So it's been beautifully renovated. They have several spaces for events, but we're going to be in what they call the Modern Cave, and it's a quite an intimate venue. It's very bright and light, and when the windows are on the whole side of the wall, and you have these giant murals that the Joe Brothers themselves have painted, which are modern and colorful and quite fascinating. So it should be an interesting. We wanted to intentionally bring people into the center. When I heard about the center, I just love the idea of it. We'll see how it is acoustically. It seems to be very live, very resonant. But we'll have amplification for the actors and everything. And like I said, it'll be an intimate space, and it's exciting to walk into the center, but just because I think people will really enjoy the concept of it. I'm not positive because the center hadn't told me yet whether people could wander around into the gallery where they have some of the art hanging. So they were hoping that that would be possible. So I'll have to. People will know once they arrive, and we're going to have a bar open for the first 30 minutes from 7 o'clock for people to come and have a drink if they want to, and kind of wander around the spaces that are open in the center.
It sounds like a wonderful evening.
Yes.
Uh, well, let's talk about Cervantes and the work for a minute. He was pretty much almost an exact contemporary of Shakespeare, as I recall.
Mhm.
Uh, mm, but his work, Don Quixote, just became incredibly popular. I mean, that testifies to, what a great work it is. But one of the things I find interesting is one of the pieces you're doing is by Telemann, who
Yes.
wrote this about 100 years or so, right after the publication of Don
Sure.
Quixote. Yeah, I find it interesting that back then in the 18th century, long before the internet, that a work like Don Quixote could spread all over Europe and become such a popular work that even a German composer like Telemann would be inspired to write music for it.
I know that is interesting, isn't it? But when it's the same thing could be said of Shakespeare that his work was known around Europe and then eventually, of course, in the world. But I think with Telemann, he obviously was so fascinated by the novel and so inspired. The burlesque or the suite. It's interesting he called it a burlesque even, but the suite that he wrote based on the novel itself is so charming, Patrick. And I think he really understood the different nuances, in the novel about the different characters. So developing those characters and trying to depict that in the music, I think it's one of his most beautiful pieces, in my opinion, the Telemann. Are you familiar with that entire suite?
I am. I am. It's delightful. I love Telemann. I think he's one of the more overlooked Baroque composers. You're the Baroque expert, but I think sometimes he is viewed by people who don't know his music very well as just kind of like cranking out works. But his music is really distinctive in the Baroque era. How would you say that it is distinctive from somebody like Bach?
Well, oh, that's an interesting question. I mean, I think. from the works that I know about Telemann, they seem to be more simplistic, especially from the performer's point of view, simplistic to play. Uh, but I still think, I mean, there's a great beauty in the simplicity of the music, and I think he doesn't seem to need or want to use the complexity that we hear in the works of Bach, for example. And I think it might, I don't know how, I'm trying to think of was he an organist?
I don't know. I think he wrote a lot of operas in Hamburg, I thought. But one of the things I find distinctive about Telemann and something that I think anticipated 19th century music was his use of folk forms. He seemed to, tap into like gypsy music and folk dances and things like that more than maybe other Baroque composers. Am I wrong about that?
You're not wrong about that. And I'm even thinking about this burlesque itself, the suite, the different musical musical elements that he uses for kind of programmatic depiction, right? Um, I think it's really inventive what he does in that piece itself, where you can hear a bit of what you're talking about, and using certain intervals to depict, for example, Sancho Panza's horse, or Rosinante depicting her, and thinking of the simplicity of the music that he writes. It's so clear how he wants the sighing, and the kind of breathtaking image of seeing Rosinante through Don Quixote's eyes. How he so clearly depicts that with very few notes.
Yeah.
So I think he's got to be used to hearing the different folk music around him during that era, and then using what he knows about that in the simplicity of it, like I keep saying, to portray all of these things so beautifully. I
Uh-huh.
mean, I will be surprised because I think that the burlesque de Don Quixote is not often performed.
No.
So people hear it, are hearing it for the first time, especially here in Kansas City.
You
And
don't hear much Telemann at all performed live locally.
that's true. And I think we're the only ones who have performed this suite, and we're not even doing the entire suite because we're doing so much other Spanish
Mhm.
Baroque music, which is also very beautiful
Yes, it is.
and magnificent.
And we should probably give some special attention to Bo Bledsoe, who, of
Yeah,
course, is the leader of Ensemble Iberica. So he's going to bring a really depth of knowledge and feeling and passion to the Spanish work.
that's right. Well, his guitar alone, he and I talked about it a little bit, that he's going to use his Baroque guitar. And I don't know if he will use his oud, but definitely his Baroque guitar has a beautiful timbre that is perfect for, and yes, obviously his knowledge and his passion, his feeling about the Spanish music, which employs so much guitar, Gaspar Sanz using it, and all of the songs that Henri Bailly that we're doing of the Yo Soy Locura, the Maristopoulos, all of these songs that Sarah will be singing, the guitar is so important for uh, the ambiance of the piece and the rhythm of the music. And so much of it is improvised. I think people need to know that all of us will be improvising bits of the songs because that's what was done. And then there's a beautiful Spanish song that I found several, I don't know, if it must have been 10 years or 12 years ago when we first assembled this piece with your help, Patrick. But the La Mare de Deu, do you know that piece, that song?
I might if you sang a few bars.
Well, maybe I won't do that, but you on the score, it's only the like a monody, only the melody line. So we're all going to be you know creating the backdrop for the song, and it's about the mother of God when she was a little girl and going to school with
Yeah,
apples. You
I
remember that?
I do know this, yes. And Sarah does a lovely job with it.
Yes, absolutely. We'll do our kind of typical arrangement where we'll have just instrumental verse. Sarah will sing. And we'll vary how we're going to accompany Sarah, and then we end with, or probably start with Sarah, end with Sarah. But the point is that we're kind of improvising how the rest of us are going to be, accompanying her. So
Uh-huh.
that happens in several of the Spanish songs, actually.
Uh-huh. Well, you just returned from New Mexico, and now you're giving Kansas City a chance to, if not go to sunny Spain or New Mexico, to at least in their minds travel to a sunny part of the world and follow the adventures of, one of the most beloved characters I think a lot of people can identify with. I kind of identify with Don Quixote, and
Yeah.
yeah,
In what way, Patrick?
well, I constantly feel like I'm tilting at windmills. So, yes. And I think we all have ideals that might seem we all want to see an ideal world, and we all kind of come up short. But, even in the coming up short, we can at least take pleasure in the humor of the attempt. I don't know. But
Yes.
it's no, I think there's something about Don Quixote in most people.
Yeah,
Most
the madness and the reality, right? Which
madness and reality. Exactly. And we
we
can
and that, don't we?
yes, we can. That's for another podcast.
Yeah,
But,
that
but
one.
anyway, this is going to be great. People should not miss it. The Adventures of Don Quixote, being presented by the Bach Aria Soloists with the wonderful violinist Elizabeth Sue Lane, who does so much great work here in Kansas City along with her group. Elizabeth, tell us again when, where, and how people can get tickets.
Absolutely. It will be February 15th, next Saturday evening, 7:30 at the Zhou Brothers Art Center in the Jazz District, and you can get tickets at bachariasoloists.com.
Great. It's always a delight talking to you, and I look
And
forward to the next time.
Patrick, thank you so much for providing this opportunity and for doing what you're doing with KC Artspeed for our community. We all appreciate you tremendously.
Thank you so much. And I know you've got a couple other great concerts coming up. I don't want to confuse people with those dates right now, but I'll have you back because you do have some more wonderful things coming up this season. So until then, best wishes on Don Quixote.
Thank you, Patrick.